Oh, yeah. Welcome in. It's the You Like That Feels Great Baby podcast. I'm your host, Erik Stenholm, along with my co host, Joey Moore. There was a little bit of a football game that went on yesterday up in Buffalo. It's a city there in upstate New York. I don't know if you caught any of that game. Pretty ho hum standard affair up there. Decent game.
Glad I didn't miss much being on planes all day, but yeah, just a good old game of pigskin.
Whew.
It's 4 quarters, 15 minutes each. Count the points at the end, and Vikings win.
Yeah, they don't ask how, they ask how many, but I kind of want to ask how. Game of the year, possibly the best Vikings regular season win ever. I kind of died in the fourth quarter and then had no emotion left to give in overtime after everything that happened. So, my wife Jamie's in the other room, and all she heard for 45 minutes was just me screaming at the TV. And then when we actually won the game on Patrick Peterson's interception, all I could let out was like a very meek, "We won." Like I had nothing left to give. And I was texting with my dad the whole time, and he said the same thing. He's like, "I died already. Like, let's just see what happens in overtime. Who cares?" What a game. What a back and forth affair. And I can't believe it, but the Vikings are 8-1, and they're one Eagles loss away from being tied atop the NFC. Pretty sweet.
Yeah, so many things to unpack there. But number one might be the amount of TikToks I've gotten about all the Vikings fans. And one of them was from you, but I was already getting them on my For Me page or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And as a fan, it's just it's one of my favorite things to watch on social media. Which you should do that. Tape yourself. I wish I could, but
It would be a little more vulgar than the ones you see on TikTok, I suppose.
But those are the best. Anyways, The game. Yes, it sucked. Picked a bad day to be traveling all day. Was gonna watch it on my phone, but Roger wouldn't let me, thanks to the blackout rules. The hilarious thing is I did see the catch. Like we were at our layover, I believe. And we were hustling to our next flight, and I saw the Justin Jefferson catch, and I was like, "Oh wow, that's a hell of a catch!" But I didn't realize when it was fourth down, in the fourth. I didn't know anything. I was like, "Just what a catch!" I was like, "Oh, they're down." I think it was 27-23.
Yeah.
Oh, they're down. But what a catch! It wasn't until late Sunday night when I got home, finally seeing all the stuff. I was like, "Oh my god, that was fourth down. It was 4th and 18."
4th and 18 game on the line. I felt like it was an exact hybrid of the OBJ catch and the David Tyree helmet catch, where it did require a little bit of opponent help. Like he had to pin it on.
I think this one was way better than the David Tyree. The only thing that makes David Tyree is because it happened in the Super Bowl. I don't want to say that took no skill, but the Jefferson one and the OBJ one, the OBJ one gets more points because it's just pretty. It's just really pretty. And the Jefferson one it's not pretty, but I don't know. It just, but yeah, the situation, I don't remember what happened with Odell's. I don't remember. I know it was down the sideline and whatever, but I mean, 4th and 18 in Buffalo in the snow.
Degree of difficulty.
We'll probably talk about this later, but that's a MVP moment.
My thought during the game, other than the Allen fumble on the 1-yard line after the Vikings failed on 4th and goal, was one of the luckiest Viking plays ever, right up there with the Minneapolis Miracle. But my other thought was, when was the last time I saw a game so completely dominated by a wide receiver? And I'm like, the guys who come to mind are Rice, Moss, and maybe Megatron. I mean,
I'd have to throw Cooper Kupp in there.
That's true. Lately. Yeah. Especially last season with Cooper Kupp when he was having. Yeah, it's tough to see him go down with that injury. Complete side note, I did see a stat today that as of week 10, Matthew Stafford's target share, 96% has been to Caucasian wide receivers. They're 3-6. That's all I have to say.
Insert the Family Guy meme.
I couldn't believe that stat when I saw it. I'm like, and there, my friends, is why you're at the very bottom of the division behind Arizona.
It doesn't make any sense. I mean, Cooper Kupp's really good, but I mean,
He was bound to get hurt with the target share they were giving him. It was like no wide receiver had ever been given that much of an offense, and everybody every week is like,
Like, is
God,
it
at some
like
point he's going to
is
get
it?
hurt.
Am I missing something? Can Allen Robinson not run anymore? Like, I mean, did that just happen overnight? Van Jefferson, like, I mean, he can play. I know he's been hurt up until recently, but
Mhm. Really,
yeah,
really rough showing
it's
for the
it's
Rams
odd.
yesterday. Yeah, they're no more talking about them. I think we can call them dead and buried this season. Um, We've talked about the Vikings game. Obviously, we could talk about it for 4 hours. Back and forth affair. Patrick Peterson comes up with the pick at the end. He actually had an incredible game despite Allen putting up some pretty good stats outside of the interceptions. I thought Patrick Peterson, what I saw today was like, okay, our secondary struggled a bit at times, but we had huge injuries. We were playing Andrew Booth in his first ever game at corner for the majority of the game, and we beat Josh Allen in Buffalo. I'm on cloud nine. I'm waiting for us to come back down to earth. We shall see when it happens. 49ers had basically the opposite of the Vikings game, where it was relatively boring, relatively ho-hum, not that impressive, but you won. You guys won. I mean, you're 5-4. Seahawks lost in Munich to Tampa. You're a half game out. You got to be feeling pretty good overall.
Pretty good, but before I get into the Niners, I do want to talk about the end of the Vikings game. We could talk more about your Vikings
Oh, I love it.
because I was thinking about it. Like, people talk about like, oh, the sneaks, like you never know, and then you're like, oh, it's either like QB kneel or like sneak, like it happens, like
Right.
it always, most of the time, always works, and it's like, of course, it doesn't on the 1 yard line, but I
Mhm.
really thought about it, like that's not an easy sneak, and especially for a guy like Josh Allen, who Buffalo is mostly, I don't know the exact numbers, in the shotgun, probably
Right.
a lot.
Very heavy
And it's
shotgun
like
team.
I didn't think about like you'll see now like the teams will take a safety on purpose because they were up 4,
Right.
but there still was enough time like I wouldn't have taken, but I wonder if like Buffalo, like if you really have Josh Allen, like I mean I would do it with him, I would do it with Patrick Mahomes, Joe, some of these guys, like you pay them so much money, you trust them, like
Mm-hmm.
if they're comfortable in the shotgun, hike it, have them roll out right. If but for some reason they run at you and like the worst play is a safety,
Mm-hmm.
that's better than the worst play being what happened Sunday.
Right.
So why don't you roll right, have the tight end somebody go roll with them, send the back outs or send Diggs or Gabe Davis on a go route. And if you have nothing, like you'll see guys now, you see at the end of the games, like if there's no timeouts, the team needs a field goal, 9 seconds left. Like they don't want to kick it with 9 seconds, they want to kick it with like 4. So
Mm-hmm.
they'll hike it and then send somebody on a go route, and the quarterback just throw it into the third row of the crowd.
Yeah.
And for some reason that we're just pretending that's not grounding. Like I don't know. That's a
Right.
whole other like topic. But I wondered like if worst case scenario, why didn't he do that? I don't know.
I
Like
think you're onto something there with so many teams operate exclusively out of the shotgun. Like not a lot of teams running the I formation or the wing T anymore these days. Like pretty much every team has opted to like get rid of the fullback at this point. I feel like that's the ideal time to either line up in the I with a fullback, give it to your running back and trust that they'll get a yard or two. Or like you said, if you have a high paid quarterback like Allen, roll out, chuck it deep, see what happens.
I mean, even we're in QB power with him. I don't know. I like he'd be
Yeah,
hard to
have
bring
him be
down.
the only one back there, take it in the shotgun and just run straight forward as fast as you can. I mean, that's probably a better call. I expected when they had the ball in that scenario for it to be a QB sneak or like a fullback, halfback wham on Madden, like something like that. And the second I saw him kind of start to take the snap and then his head go down, I said, I think that's a safety. And I was like, okay, we're back in this. We'll get the ball with 35 seconds left. And then Joe Davis, the play-by-play, was just losing his mind. And someone, his spotter, had probably told him balls out because he recognized immediately. And then I, of course, lost my shit for the next minute and a half.
Yeah, I just wild. Just wild.
Feels great, baby.
Yes, feels great, baby. Anyways, back to the less impressive performance. I
Hmm.
don't be a total downer. They did win, and like you said, they don't ask how, they ask how many.
A primetime win. Jimmy Garoppolo did all right, 240 yards, no
Well, we
touchdowns,
could if
but
you brought him up, I would start with him. People are, I don't want to say they don't want to admit it, but I think they're afraid to admit it. But I think he's in the stretch of the best play of his career right now. He's not turning the ball over as much. And I saw that yesterday, and that was I missed almost all of the game, so I had to rewatch it today. But and the stat backed this up. But on third down, he was 8 of 10 for 108 yards, and that included a touchdown drop by Brandon Ayuk in the end zone.
Yes.
So he very easily could have been 9 of 10 for a touchdown and like 115 yards, which is damn good.
Yeah.
He had a couple of off-schedule plays that on the run to his right to Ray McLeod. Like, that wasn't just Shanahan's system scheming somebody open. Hit Juwan Jennings a few times. I mean, hit him in the hands. The one thing I will say is some of these screens that these defensive coordinators are preparing for, like every single time the defensive end stops, but I think that's just getting pick six every time. Gives me a heart attack. But anyways, yeah, it's a little concerning to me after a bye against a very, very banged up Chargers team that they still only scored 22 points. They still have major red zone issues.
It was, I thought it felt like a game where they easily could have won by 2 scores, and they also could have lost it. Like, there were times where I was like, how are they not up like, 29-13 at one point? And then there were other times like, God, are they going to lose this? Like, Herbert was marching down there, and then I was thinking, oh, well, he's only got Palmer and DeAndre Carter. He's got no one to throw to. His top, I think, 3 targets were out in that game. So really up and down affair, but your defense really seemed to come through at the end there.
Yeah, rewatching the game, the number, like you said, the numbers, I checked the box score here. Numbers, total yards, Niners 387 to 238. Yards per play, 5.5 to 4.2. But then I rewatched the game, and it was like 10-3. We'd already fumbled the block punt. Herbert hits Carter again, gets down to like the 2-yard line. I'm like, it's first and goal. We could be down 17-3. And Bosa with a sack on second down. Believe third down. I forget what happened. It might have been an incomplete pass, but they kick a field goal up 13-3. It's like, okay, that could have been 17-3. Luckily, we drive down, score a touchdown, Jimmy sneak. But yeah, the Chargers come back, get a field goal, and then D'Amico, whatever he's doing in the halftime's working.
Second half defensive performance.
2 straight shutouts in the second half. Rams last week and Chargers this week. I know they're both banged up, but a shutout's a shutout, which is nice to have that in the back pocket, because before that it was the Chiefs, and they made me question all of our defensive statistics at that time, because we were number 1 in the league. We still are points wise or yards wise, but like that one was like, okay, are we just playing Marcus Mariota and Baker Mayfield and Matt Stafford with one arm, Fields, Russell Wilson? Like, are we not what we are? And then last 2 weeks again, I know we played Herbert, but he had nobody, and Stafford again. But a shutout's a shutout.
Elijah Mitchell, 89 yards, coming straight off the IR and out rushing McCaffrey. You got to feel good about that.
What's hilarious is on the plane, because I'm pretty proud of my wife Kayla, how much she's caring about fantasy lately. Really tough start, but lately she saw Judy got hurt, and I tried to convince her to trade me Elijah Mitchell for George Pickens, because I didn't know what Mitchell would do. I thought, like, okay, I need a running back, you need a receiver, and then he goes out there. Yeah, it kind of makes me think, like, hey, if he was so good, like, did we need to give everything for McCaffrey? We had Jeff Wilson, like, there's a lot of picks, but
Wilson's doing well in Miami.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
But yeah, he looks great.
Also would like to point out, I did lose to Kayla by like 0.3 points this week in your league. Devastating. I was in the lead until the very last Brandon Ayuk catch that gave her a 0.3 point victory. Devastating.
It's okay. I play her this week for the first time, so I'm gonna send her back. Maybe. No, he looks fantastic. I mean, the only thing bad guy gonna say is Big Mike over there, 69. Khalil Mack just pushing him
So
back into
you,
the recession.
as you mentioned, you were in transit on the way back from Hawaii, and I watched the Niner game in full. And I feel like this was the first game that I got the full McGlinchey experience. I was like, man, my
He
brother used to hate.
sucks.
My brother's a huge Seahawks fan. He used to hate Jermaine Ifedi. He was like, the guy is a turnstile. I can't stand this guy. It's always 3 holdings a game, whatever. I'd be like, then why do they keep playing him? And then you're the same way with McGlinchey. And I watched the game, and I'm like, yeah, if that guy was on the Vikings, I would be apoplectic. I'd be like, get him off the field. Anybody would be better. I saw a couple plays in a row where he was literally sledded back into the quarterback, where his feet look like he's not wearing cleats and the rest of the team is, and he just gets pushed back right into Jimmy G. I was like, that is impressive. That is really bad, but you guys found a way to pull through.
Khalil Mack ate his lunch. There was they I saw on the rewatching the game, they ran a boot with Jimmy. They ran a boot, and like Khalil Mack was right under his chin. And I wanted to yell out McGlinchey so bad, but to his defense, that looked like it was Tyler Croft who blew the play. But yeah, and then at the end, defense comes through. Maybe future All-Pro safety Talanoa Hufanga with the pick.
So good. And Fred Warner with
though that was the next thing I was going to say is like the only thing that did concern me a bit. We are so banged up on the defensive line, and I don't know if they're ever going to come back with Armstead and Kinlaw.
Mm-hmm.
Like those are gigantic human beings, and the backups are now getting hurt, and like you can only just throw out any, Joe Schmo you want until it's like really a problem.
Right.
But yeah, there was one play I saw too. We rushed 6 guys and got no pressure. And I'm like, that's a bad sign. That's not going to hold up in the future. But
DeMeco Ryans is doing an incredible job. He leans so heavily on Warner, though, and I felt like I understood that for the first time in this game. Watching from start to finish, I was like, Warner is to the Niners defense what Eric Kendricks is to the Vikings defense, where it's just like, if this guy goes down, the whole thing kind of falls apart.
Oh, yeah. He's so fast. Like, he's not like going back in Niners, history. You have like Willis and Bowman, especially Patrick Willis, would like just a physically like would kill people. Which was what football was when he was playing, running the football, defense. Now it's like everyone spreads him out. Like, would he still be a good player? Sure, of course he would, but you probably prioritize like covering these tight ends. Like Patrick Willis probably could not cover Kelsey, Mark Andrews,
right?
Some of these slot guys. I mean, Fred Warner gets lined up on Cooper Kupp sometimes when they play the Rams, and it's
does
like
fine.
And like, yeah, he'll give up a catch, but like it's like, okay, it's not panic mode. Like, sometimes get these offensive coordinators like, okay, you in motion, like you go in the orbit motion, whatever, you slide over here. And all of a sudden it's like some linebacker wearing number 59 that you haven't seen all year on like Kupp in the slot, Jefferson in the slot. And you're just like,
this guy's about to
like
get
you
toasted.
was like timeout.
Yeah.
Like, but with him, it works. And that's, it's a big reason why I would think that DeMeco is going to be a head coach next year, but we'll see.
Another player who's been schemed brilliantly, at least in the last few weeks, Justin Fields. Holy shit, has he been good the last month? And I did not see this coming. I was probably as vocal a critic of that guy as anybody in the last year and a half. I didn't think he should have been drafted as high as he was. I was not all that impressed with him at Ohio State. I remember betting on Ohio State a lot and thinking, God, I keep hearing this guy's going to be a top 5 pick, and I really don't see it. These last 4 weeks, he has just taken off. Now, granted, Chicago is, I believe, 3-7, so things aren't going.
Beat the Niners, though.
Yeah, they're not going all that well in Chicago, wins and losses wise, but I think they have to be feeling they found their franchise quarterback. He's run for 330 yards the last 2 weeks. Feels like a poor man's 2012 Colin Kaepernick season for Justin Fields. I didn't see this coming. You didn't see this coming. We got to give the man his due.
Yeah, I also didn't see it coming. I didn't see what people may have wanted to see at Ohio State. The one thing I will say is I didn't realize he was that big.
Right.
6'4". He has all the tools, but like when I watch him, I'm like, what is he looking at? Why does he look like things are processing very slow? And you said it, because I think about Kaepernick all the time when I see him with the numbers. It's like throw for 170, run for 120, whatever. Lately he's running for 180.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, Kaepernick's peak was very high. Very high.
Yeah, the Green Bay
But
playoff
the peak
game
didn't last very long.
Right.
And that's what I think about with Justin Fields. Like he's playing out of his mind right now, but like you said, he also did just lose at home to the Lions.
He did throw
not
a
entirely
critical
his
pick
fault.
six. Yeah.
Not entirely his fault. I mean, defense can't, but yeah, throws a pick. And it just, this running is not sustainable. I will say it with Kyler Murray. I say it with Lamar. It's just not sustainable. But that being said, he looks way better than I ever thought he would, even at this point. It's what I think the Niners tried to do with Trey. Is like, we know you're not ready as a passer, but let's use your running ability. And that's working way more successfully with Fields in Chicago. Number one, because he's a better athlete and runner than Trey is. He's not a very talented runner, honestly.
Right.
He's more of like a Cam Newton. He'd rather run you over. That's why he got hurt.
Right.
But he's not going to make guys miss. But yeah, Justin Fields, what a fantasy player, number one.
Oh my God. So Jamie has Fields on her fantasy team. She plays in this league of her former company, like alumni league or whatever. And she took Fields during her draft. I'm like, what are you doing? And I realized it's a two quarterback league. So I'm like, oh, okay, maybe plug him in and get some rushing yards. He's been the best player in fantasy football for a month. He's carrying so many people's teams.
I could be wrong, but I want to say Evan has him in the league with like my league with Jake.
Yeah.
And
yeah, my brother.
I looked. I looked. I don't know. I was just going through the league, and I was like, oh yeah, Fields. I was like, oh my God. I think he had like 40 something. I'm like,
yeah, last week he had 50 fantasy points. I mean, he's carrying people's leagues right now. If Chicago was a better team, he would be up there in the conversation for, like, I don't know, comeback player of the year, given how horrible it was last season. Right now, I would say probably the biggest negative story in the NFL is the Raiders and how
it has to be
completely unraveled. There's this whole big thing today that Mark Davis is like, I am committed 100% to Josh McDaniels. He will be our coach next season in 2023, which I took that after such an embarrassing loss at home to the Jeff Saturday-led Colts. I took that as we are done with the Derek Carr era, and I have chosen that Josh McDaniels will lead us with a new quarterback in 2023. That's what I heard when Mark Davis came out and said that today. Is that what you're thinking as well?
It was hard to see Derek Carr cry after the game. Is because I don't know. But yeah, everything. There's nothing pointing in the right direction with the Raiders. I saw a notification that said, "Oh yeah, we're committed," like you said, to Josh McDaniels, and I'm like, why? I'm like, I just, again, the Raiders were in the playoffs last year, trending in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
You add Devontae Adams, like. You get rid of Rich Bisaccia for anybody. I'm not even going to point Josh McDaniels. You better be right.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you better be right. Like, I read something too that I don't know if it was when he got hired or when he got let go last year, that Rich Bisaccia wrote, I want to say every player, a handwritten note, like thanking it for like being a coach. Like, I know this isn't the Hallmark Channel, but come on. How do you not like get emotionally tied to it? Like Josh McDaniels, like what do you do?
And then
like
the complete opposite of that is you bring in a Belichick disciple who's like, do your job. You're just a piece in this giant puzzle. I don't care about you as a person. Like, clearly, especially with the way Carr reacted in his post-game presser yesterday, clearly that locker room has completely fallen apart.
It's very interesting because they're going to move on from Derek Carr. He's not had the greatest year this year, but there's something weird about the relationship because Devontae Adams last couple of weeks has basically thrown everyone under the bus too. And I'm like, it's just weird. Like you were best friends with Carr. Like you came to the Raiders, you came back closer to home. You got paid, all this money, like I don't know, like something happened with him and Carr already. Like, does
Yeah.
he miss Rodgers? Like, does he actually miss him? Like, I would have thought that he got the money closer to family and home. Apparently,
Playing with his
playing with
best
his good
friend. Yeah.
friend. Like, I don't think if they were as close as they intended, or that he would be just saying all this stuff after. Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm kind of questioning, like, why are you like this upset? Like, does he already see the writing on the wall? Like, they're going to get rid of Carr.
Mhm.
He's going to be in Vegas without his buddy in total irrelevancy.
Mhm.
Like, part of the reason why we considered him the best receiver in the league, along with Cup, whoever, right now it's probably Jefferson, is
Mhm.
because they're in big games. They're on TV. Like, they win.
Right.
Like,
And he
no
had
one
this like
he could put up
telepathic
the same.
connection with Rodgers
Yeah,
with a
he
Hall of
could
Fame
put up
quarterback.
he could put up the same numbers on
Yeah.
with the Raiders, but if they go 4-13, like no one's gonna care. Like,
And then next
does
year
he
when he's
already
catching
see that?
passes from CJ Stroud, nobody's going to care even further.
Exactly. I don't know.
Not
I
looking
just,
good.
it's weird to me because like if one of my favorite teams in any sport paid me as much as he's getting paid to be closer to family, like, and to play with a good friend, like, maybe I'm just not a big competitive guy, but I'd be happy. Like, I mean,
Right.
Yeah, I'd of course love to win, but
Right.
but he seems like he never did this in Green Bay. Like, did he? I don't know. It's something's very off, very, very off with the Raiders um yeah, I don't know. I mean, personally, I would get Mark Davis. I don't know if he's got more money now that he's in Vegas.
He seems
But
to be reluctant to want to pay 3 coaches because he would have to
yeah,
pay, Gruden, McDaniels, and then whoever he hires there. So I kind of think that's probably the majority of the
if I
equation.
was him, I would get rid of everybody. I would even fire the GM. He's a Patriots guy. Like, if you get rid of McDaniels, like, I would get rid of him too.
Yeah. Breaking news here on the podcast. The Philadelphia Eagles have just lost.
I was gonna say, did that impact the betting line? But no, Washington won. That didn't.
Washington won on the final play of the game. They got a meaningless touchdown, but the Eagles' perfect season is over. My survivor pool entry that made it through 9 weeks is also over, which is devastating for me. But the Minnesota Vikings now have the best record in the NFL at 8-1, tied with the formerly undefeated Eagles. Big moment there that could swing the season with a loss in the division, in the conference for the Eagles. So
I was thinking about that. What does the tiebreaker go? Does it go to head, or does it go conference record?
Head first.
It's head to head if it's just those two teams, right?
Right. If
and
it's
then
a three-way
division if
tie.
it's more. Yeah, because that was happening to the Niners last year. That, like, I was like, oh, we're going to be in the playoffs. We beat last year. The Niners beat the Saints, and it was Philly. It was them, the Saints, and Philly. And like, I was like, oh, well, we should get in. But they're like, oh, because I was like, oh, we beat the Saints and Philly beat the Saints. So I'm like, well, if so facto, then take the Saints out.
Right.
But they're like, no, it's conference record. And they're like, yeah, the Niners have the worst conference record of this, so they have to win that game. I was like, okay,
that's what I'm
cool.
saying. If somehow, the Niners go on a run or the Bucks go on a run and there's a 3-way tie there, it would go to conference. But as of now, the Eagles still have this tiebreaker.
This is a game that makes me like not complain about winning last night.
Exactly, because you're
like, oh, it's like, no, this is the NFL. You could lose you could lose to anybody.
Yeah.
And it's like
22-16 win at home in prime time against the Chargers looks pretty good right now when you just saw what happened to the Eagles with our boy Taylor Heineke dethroning the undefeated
211
Eagles.
yards, no touchdowns, 1 pick.
Absolute star.
And he defeated the undefeated Philadelphia Eagles on the road by 10 or by 11.
It's
incredible. I know the last thing, but hey, the score is the score.
You got to love it. The last undefeated is down in the NFL, and the Vikings.
I guess the 72 Dolphins are popping champagne.
Oh, back when every team ran the wing tee and guys sold aluminum siding in the offseason, I still feel like you put the 72 Dolphins against like the 2022 Jags, and it would be a 63-0 trouncing. But I digress. We're looking at the 2022 season. MVP
What a
leaders
win.
at this point, we going Mahomes and Tua in that order. And what about Justin Jefferson? Is he in the conversation at this point, or am I being biased?
I think he will absolutely get some votes. My pushback, I would probably have Mahomes right now
Mm-hmm.
if I had, because I just lean quarterback. I just lean quarterback for the MVP, and then the offensive player of the year probably go to the receiver or running back
Right.
if there's a good one.
Like last year with
But
Cup.
if there ever was a year to have a receiver, wouldn't it be this year? Because Josh Allen, boy, it sure seemed like he's playing himself out of it, especially if he really is hurt and he really starts to, go down.
He seemed like a shoo-in 2 weeks ago, and then losses to the Jets and Vikings that he kind of caused the loss. I feel like he's out of the conversation until he really gets back in it somehow.
My only pushback is I would replace Tua and add another receiver, in fact, from his own team, and I got to look at Tyreek Hill.
It's true.
And somebody, because I don't want to take credit for coming up with that idea. I saw it and I was like, you know what? Because like his numbers are, and it's just he wasn't like, because with the Vikings, like yeah, you could obviously Jefferson the offensive player of the year candidate for sure, but you want to put Kevin O'Connell in the coach of the year because he wasn't there last year. Other than that, it's the same. Mostly, I would think the same guys.
Mhm.
But Tyreek, you could throw Mike McDaniel in the coach of the year too, but I mean, Tyreek his numbers are off the chart.
He's on pace to break Calvin Johnson's record, I believe, for most yards in a season. He's got it's like 1,250 yards through 10 games. It's pretty incredible.
I would think, yeah, Jefferson, Mahomes, Tyreek.
If Tua hadn't missed a
Geno
couple
Smith
games.
MVP candidate kind of took a hit
Oof.
Sunday.
Yeah, I think that niche idea kind of
People were
died.
saying Micah Parsons. I think mostly just because he's got a star on his helmet, which we'll get to that game. But he got. Anyways, I'll talk about that when we talk about the game. But yeah, MVP, I would go Mahomes, and yeah, whatever receiver you want to pick.
Yeah,
right
it's
now.
crazy that we got 2 wide receivers probably in the top 3 or 4 MVP candidates at this point in the season. Usually you have like a Lamar in 2019 and Mahomes in 2018 where it's basically a runaway halfway through the season and it's not really a discussion. Right now it's like Mahomes is kind of the de facto leader. He's having the same season he always does, but they are 7-2.
He's like one of those guys that already, even though he's still really young, gets penalized for like, oh, it's boring to just keep voting for him.
Exactly.
Kind of like the LeBron fatigue. It's like you could have voted LeBron the MVP 10 years in a row if you like really wanted to. And I think with Mahomes, it's like, oh, yeah, whatever, 3 touchdowns, 4 touchdowns, no picks.
Yeah,
another
he's
win.
5,100 yards,
yeah,
48
whatever.
touchdowns. Yeah. Oh, it's ho hum.
But even this year, like I think maybe people would even be more inclined is like, okay, he loses Tyreek. He might be better. I don't know. It's hard to. Quarterbacks always get the extra credit point too because of the position they play. But yeah, he's looking like the front runner. Jalen Hurts took a hit today.
Oh, massive hit. Yeah. I think the time of possession in that game was like 44 minutes for Washington, like some ridiculous number. So, obviously it's not all on Hurts, but the Eagles, first seed, Hurts MVP, Sirianni coach of the year, all of those things just took a massive hit. Let's transition over to your Jack in the Bum of the Week. A lot of illustrious Jack in the Bum of the Week champions the last 3 weeks. This week, obviously, because you gave it to the Raiders last week, excuse me, we can't go them 2 weeks in a row, even though Josh McDaniels
really could have.
Very deserving, very deserving. I also thought Dennis Allen maybe could have been thrown in there with the Saints with just a listless performance against the Steelers. And then my personal nominee might have been Josh Allen because 3 critical errors on his part basically kept the Vikings in the game. If he doesn't make, if he makes only 2 of those and not the third one, we're not talking about the 8-1 Vikings right now. So really rough game for Josh Allen. But you're going with somebody involved in that Packers-Cowboys barn burner yesterday.
Yeah. Very, very easily got with the Raiders back-to-back weeks. But we like to mix it up here. Sometimes you got to get the Jumbo Jack, sometimes the Bacon Ultimate Cheeseburger, sometimes the Chicken Tendies, whatever you want. But yeah, Fox Game of the Week, the boys in the pack And Jack and the Bum of the Week is none other than Big Bum Mike McCarthy.
Big Mike.
14-point lead in the fourth quarter in Lambeau. You have heard everyone in Packerland say you were just an airhead, like just lifeless. I mean, whatever you want to say, penalties, like, and guess
He
what,
spent
buddy?
the last 3
You
years of
proved
his
everything
Packers.
correct.
Oh,
The Packers looked like garbage up until this point. And again, I missed all the football Sunday until like last night. Today, when I first heard that the Packers won, I was genuinely shocked. I was like, because I thought it would be a joke. Well, I was wrong, and then I was very wrong when I saw the Dallas have a 14-point lead in the fourth quarter. My whole thing that goes back to Mike McCarthy is, what do you do? Like, what do you do on game day? You
right.
You get all this credit for winning that's really on the back of Dan Quinn's defense. You have nothing to do with the defense other than the fact you hired Dan Quinn. And they wanted to replace you with Dan Quinn for at least a second in the offseason.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't call plays. Kellen Moore calls plays.
What are you doing?
The team is so undisciplined. Look at this: 9 for 83, 9 penalties, 83 yards. What do you do? What do you do?
The final 3 seasons of his Packers tenure, all we heard was how, like you're saying, he's an airhead. This guy's just a complete knucklehead who's, killing this team. And then, of course, LaFleur goes, I think, 13-3, 13-3, and 13-4 in his first 3 seasons. And it's both basically proven right that McCarthy was holding the Packers back. So McCarthy starts this year 6-1, mostly with Cooper Rush. And people are like, hey, everybody forgets Mike McCarthy's a really good coach in this league. He comes in with a 14-point lead into the fourth quarter. Dallas Cowboys, in their history, 195-0 with a 14-point lead in the fourth quarter. And it's at his former team, and he completely blows it.
Everything lined up for him to just stick it to them. And he could have driven a stake through their season. Mm-hmm. Really could have. 14-point lead. Now we could maybe put some of the blame on other people, the team, whatever. But you're the head coach. It falls on you, especially when it's Packers on the road in Lambeau. It just, again, the penalties, like, that's on the coach. It's consistently year after year after year, mm-hmm. undisciplined. And we'll see where they go from here, because we'll talk about, they go to Minnesota. That very well could be an L. After that, they get the Giants on Thanksgiving. That very well could be an L. Mm-hmm. I mean, it could go from, like, look at this wonderful, like,
coach of the year candidate to unemployed.
To, like, yep. No, he's getting fired like the second week of December. And
that's why they say not for long. NFL, not for long. He went from riding high at 6-1 to a couple losses here, and he could be on the chopping block. And I don't know if he gets another NFL job if he fails at Dallas.
If they miss the playoffs, they're what now? 6-4? Yeah.
6-3.
Oh, 6-3. Okay. So never mind. I thought maybe that they had. They could miss the playoffs. I guess they play a first place schedule, winning the division last year.
So you mentioned before Dallas is going to Minnesota this week. So let's take a look at next week's lines. Try to come up with some picks, which I'll go over later in my "You Like That" 5 picks of the week. Let's start with the Vikings. Dallas at Minnesota, the Fox game of the week, 125 Pacific. Dallas opened as a 2.5-point favorite. It's down to 2. We are both all over the Vikings, right? And I'm not being biased in saying that line is way out of whack from what we thought it would be.
I think this is just, again, the star on the helmet does something to people. And maybe it's all these Cowboy fans betting Dallas why they're, why they got the line. But yeah, Dallas -2 on the road in minute. Why?
Why? Thought there would be, it's got to be a big letdown spot for the Vikings after that game, and Dallas is motivated after their big letdown in Green Bay. But in no scenario did I think this would be anything less than like Vikings -1. If you're a big believer in Dallas's defense and Elliott coming back so the running game will be better, okay, I get it. But Dallas -2.5, now -2. I was pretty shocked to see that. I think we're probably gonna, for the first time this year, put either the Vikings or Niners in my 5
They
best bets, which is scary, but
they they flexed Chiefs Chargers. I'm wondering why this game didn't get flexed. This is a pretty good one.
oh,
But
and
maybe Kirk petitioned the league to not flex it. We don't know.
oh my god. I
But
saw a good TikTok that it showed like Kirk Cousins with his chains on it. It was like you've just been had by the noon nightmare because in Minnesota they play the game.
That's good.
I was like, yeah, that guy's unstoppable for the 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern games. But this one, it's getting a little bit closer to prime time. Let's see which Kirk shows up next week.
I'm interested to see one thing on that. I like because Vikings with Dalvin, they run the ball, and one thing I read and saw about what the Packers did, why Aaron Jones had a big day. Dan Quinn actually sat Micah Parsons like late in the game, like he basically admitted like he was a liability. Which again, everyone's a Micah Parsons, Aaron Donald, and I've seen it. Like they just wouldn't block him, and then he just runs up the field, and they run right by him. And the Niners do with Aaron Donald. The Chiefs did it to Nick Bosa with all these jet sweeps. Like they basically don't block him, and they run up field, and the guy runs right by him, and
they take themselves out of the play.
They're on the second. I'm very interested to see like if back-to-back weeks, what Vikings coaching staff sees with the Dallas. I mean, the Packers couldn't score against Detroit, who let you, me, and my mom and dog score on them all year, and they score 30 on Dallas.
The supposedly vaunted Dallas defense, 31 points, including just a blitzkrieg in the fourth quarter. Of the Packers probably could have had like 24 points in that fourth quarter in overtime.
I don't know. We'll see. I'm interested to see what that. But yeah, no, Minnesota.
So
they should win.
Off of the Eagles' loss tonight, the game Philly at Indy next week has moved from, it was Philly -10, it's now Philly -8. Even at 8, I'm really inclined to take Indianapolis with Matt Ryan being back in there instead of Ellinger, who was a disaster. Jeff Saturday, I don't know if you saw his post-game speech. I feel like we're a very rah-rah post-game speech, body language podcast here, but something about Jeff Saturday has me thinking, oh God, I is this really going to happen? Is Indy actually going to be better with a coach off the street? I want to take Indy +8 next week. I'm not saying they're going to win the game outright, but something about this just feels like one of those magical second halves.
Yes, you're right. We are a very big body language, vibes, mojo, team sport loving, anti NBA. We love our players. We love our teammates podcast. And yes, there's something. Jeff Saturday was electric. I put me in, coach. Like I might be in the minority, but like, yeah, I loved the hire. Do I think it's crazy? Yes. Hell yes, it's crazy. Yes, it's ridiculously crazy. But he's an interim coach. The Colts are.
We want to say this is independent of the hiring process, which is probably pretty jacked up. There should have been someone on the staff, or if they skirted the Rooney Rule, then shame on them. It's an absolute travesty. But Jeff Saturday did seem pretty cool.
It's like he's an interim coach. Like another thing too. Like people take I don't know, like hiring process. Like they did have to play a game Sunday. Like I don't know. I mean, yeah, the best they should have promoted. I think they got a couple guys I know on staff. I can't remember. I think they have John Fox. I think actually, but I don't know. Like I just, it felt it. I don't know. I don't know why, but I loved it. I was like, especially beating the Raiders. I don't know why. Just make the bigger tire fire.
That seemed
Just
like
he literally tweeted last week the Raiders look horrible and had to give up his fantasy football team to go coach a real team and just beat the Raiders after tweeting they look horrible.
Oh, I saw that tweet. Everybody was retweeting it, and I was like, that is pretty badass. Like, one week
Like
he's a Twitter troll, the next week he's winning a game as an NFL coach.
This is like, for all you wonderful hockey fans out there, when the Maple Leafs lost to their own Zamboni driver.
Oh yeah, when the Carolina backup goalie. Yep.
David Ayers, he's there. They shoot on him in practice. He drives a Zamboni, and they had to put him in a real game, and they couldn't beat him. Jeff Saturday tweeted, the Raiders look horrible. The next week, he beat them on Sunday. And it's not like he took over. I mean, he got like the coach got fired. The team is terrible. It's not like he came in, coached the Chiefs, and beat the Raiders. Like, he came in with Sam Ehlinger, benched him, Matt Ryan, and beat on the road. It's
pretty cool. You gotta love it. That's why we watch.
In the future, like, you talk about the hiring, like, it's a terrible job. Like,
right.
The owner seems to be damn near Jerry Jones level of
medals and everything.
Like, you have no quarterback. You're in cap hell with all these players that don't translate to winning.
Mm-hmm.
The offensive line is terrible and expensive. Matt Ryan, I think dead cap is humongous for next year.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do? I don't know.
But for 1 week, he's a little bit of a cult hero. A couple other games. Chicago at Atlanta. I was surprised to see Atlanta minus 3.5. It's down to 3. I still like Chicago at 3 with the way Fields is playing. And I thought Atlanta was awful last Thursday. Just awful, like to the point where I was like, are they going to bring in Ritter for Mariota? It was really bad. One game I really want to circle. This is a little bit blasphemous, but Detroit at the Giants. The Giants are minus 3.5. I like Detroit a lot here. The Giants, I don't know if you watched much of that game where they played the Texans. They should not have won that game. The Texans got into the red zone like 7 times and came away with 13 points. It was a total tire fire coaching performance and then some horrible passes by Davis Mills. But Saquon Barkley is on pace for 430 touches. That is not going to just continue. At some point, the Giants are going to come back down to earth. And I think that might be this week. So when I saw that line, I was like, at some point, the Giants got to fall apart, right? Like, this whole thing of just give it to Saquon 38 times and then have Jones run himself into a wall 12 times has to stop working at some point, you would think. Any games you saw on next week's lines that you were like, hey, that seems a little odd?
I would also say, I like Detroit. Big Detroit guy this week. The one that sticks out to me, I don't know why, but yeah, I think Kansas City wins big in LA against the Chargers. Chargers are really, really, really banged up on the offensive line. I would have thought the Niners could have taken more advantage of that, but we also were playing backups except for Nick Bosa. Everyone else was a backup on our defensive line. They double and triple team Bosa, and no one else can win. But I think Chris Jones next week is going to be a gigantic problem.
Oh yeah.
He's having a heck of a year. And the Chargers, no one's getting any healthier. I mean, there's no indication that Keenan Allen or Mike Williams come back next week.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe one of them do, maybe both, but even then
they're missing a lot.
A lot.
Yeah, a team that I think most people penciled in for a playoff spot because of the quality of the roster in spite of the coach. And now with the amount of injuries they have, they've really kind of fallen off the map, I think, as a contender.
Every year the Charger fans like, wait till we get healthy. Well, you never get healthy.
Yeah, it's like kind of been that way with the Niners other than 2019 where it's like, wait till we get healthy. It's like, when? Like 6 years from now?
We'll see you in 2023.
Yeah.
I was thinking about that too, the whole division, like AFC West. Oh, big bad AFC West. No, the Raiders are garbage. Denver's garbage.
Chargers speaking of the Raiders in Denver, they play each other in Denver next week.
Oh my God, who cares?
Is that the worst game of the year? It's got to be the worst game of the year.
It's the worst. It's not because you could have put. I don't even know if they play, but you could have put like Texans, Jaguar. Like you could have put maybe a worse, but there's no worse game of like worse. Like you couldn't have put a worse game that features two of the most disappointing teams in the league.
Bad vibes in that game. Just an absolute
Like
tire
just one
fire
of
on
those
both
games.
ends.
Like, does anyone want to be there?
Hackett doesn't want to be there.
Does
McDaniels
does
doesn't want
anyone
to be
actually
there.
want to go to the stadium Sunday and
Lot of
play that?
free tickets for that game, I would imagine, in the Denver market. And then let's finish up the Week 11 lines talk with the Niners are going to Mexico. They're playing in Estadio Azteca in Mexico City. Niners -5.5. I think that's assuming Kyler Murray's in there. We'll maybe discuss later in the podcast your thoughts on the Colt McCoy performance against the Rams. Seems about right. Niners -5.5. I think their expectation level is slightly higher than how they've performed the past few weeks, but they still got to be a favorite against Arizona, no doubt.
Yeah, I that's pretty accurate. The whole the whole yeah, idea of playing in Mexico, I don't know what to make of like with a line. I kind of expect it to be more 49er fans than Arizona.
Right.
So I don't know, like, yeah, but -5.5 seems pretty accurate.
Yeah, he probably couldn't make it a full touchdown, but I would imagine it's going to be, at least of the fans that are rooting for a team, 70%
And I
Niners,
think
you would think, maybe
they
more.
show all the London and Munich games, and there's like it's like what was it, Tampa, Seattle, and there's like a guy in like a Packers jersey, and I'm just happy to be here. I
He's
paid like
like,
I
we
paid like
love the
$9,000
football.
for this tickets. Paid like
I,
$9,000
yeah, I
to
saw it was
not
like
care about the game.
3 million people applied for tickets for that game in Munich. I'm like,
Business is booming if you're Roger.
oh my God. There's going to
I
be
never thought we'd get a European division, but
There's going to be European teams in 15, 20 years. I would completely believe it.
I just thought they're going to own every time slot. They're going to own every day. There's going to be like European, like Tuesday night football that's actually like Wednesday night football that's actually like Thursday football. It's going to get wild.
London Jaguars, Frankfurt. What was it? What were the teams back then? The Rhine Fire, the Amsterdam Admirals.
I don't even know.
Oh, I love the NFL.
It just makes
Europe.
me think of like Madden.
Oh yeah,
when you go through the teams, and I'm
you
like,
could play with Kurt Warner on the Rhine Fire or whatever. Amsterdam Admirals, that was sick. Speaking of Europe, before we get into my predictions for Week 11, I want to take a quick second here to remind everybody that the World Cup starts on Sunday the 20th. I think people will be occupied doing other things next Sunday. There is a full slate of NFL games. But just a public service announcement that this event, that's the greatest sporting event in the world, bar none, starts on Sunday. Because it's in a country with severely problematic, views on a million different things and, violations of every kind of human right with the migrant workers there that built the stadiums. It is a completely tarnished World Cup, which is so sad to say because ever since I became a soccer fan, maybe 8 or 10 years ago, I have been obsessed with the World Cup. I've been obsessed with the Champions League and the Premier League. And this is the first World Cup that I have, really been into where I'm not as excited as I was for, especially 2014 in Brazil. It just was like this awesome event. ESPN had incredible coverage of it. This year, the games are on at 2, 5, 8, and 11 a.m. Pacific time. Fox is covering it, and they do a terrible job of covering soccer. A lot of negativity about this World Cup, but that can all be changed by the U.S. having a good showing heading into the 26th World Cup, which will be in the United States. So anybody who's got even just a little bit of interest in soccer, give it a shot, see what you think. I know everybody who listens to this is a football fan, but give the other football a try.
Football. I was reading about it today because I was wondering, I was like, why is the World Cup in November? And I was like, did it have to do with COVID? Did it have to do but I read today, like they moved it because it was always going to be in Qatar. Like that, like you pointed out, like, why it's just odd they're having it there. Because because other things have moved, like because of, like Russia. Like I know hockey's moved a lot of stuff out of Russia, like
Right.
whatever. But like it's there, so like they're like whatever, we don't we don't care. But like they moved it to November because it like put playing it in June or July whenever they do play it. I can't
Yeah,
even
it's
tell you
always
when
June. It's always mid-June to mid-July, and they can't play it
because
because
it's so goddamn hot.
it's hilarious. All the
That's
stadiums,
just so that's just so nuts.
all the
Oh, I can't
stadiums
play,
have been
can't play. It's too hot.
designed to have light hit only the players. So everyone sitting in the stands receives air conditioning, but the field, it's like the old Cowboys stadium where it's just one little vertical beam of light that hits the field. But even with the air conditioning in the stadium for the fans, it still would have been like 120 degrees for the players if they played it in June and July because Qatar's like right in the middle of the Sahara Desert. It's like as hot as it can possibly get. So they move heaven and earth. They change the Premier League schedule, every European league schedule, every domestic, soccer competition in the world has to stop for a month and a half, all to accommodate this ill-begotten World Cup that was, stolen from the United States by, the Qatari royal family giving tens of millions of dollars to FIFA executives. And the whole thing has this awful taste to it. But because it's sports and because it's the World Cup, I'm still going to be watching. Couple thoughts here. I do think, despite the U.S. having a very incompetent coach, I've looked at their group. I think they're going to beat Iran. I think they're going to be very competitive against Wales. They may win that game. They are going to lose to England. I do think they make the knockout round where they would face likely the Netherlands, which they would be a huge underdog in that game. But all they got to do is get to the knockout round heading into 2026 World Cup for a lot of people to be like, hey, soccer's coming, World Cup 2026. I'm excited. We got Christian Pulisic. Like, it's pretty cool. But if they get smoked, oh boy, like it is going to be very hard to get any ratings for the rest of the World Cup in the United States for that matter. But it's going to be very hard to drum up interest as the U.S. hosts 4 years from now. Kind of a crazy situation.
Basically, all I can add to this conversation is that I think the team that puts the ball in the net more than the other will win the game.
Excellent analysis. For what it's worth,
I will say that for not caring about soccer, I will watch the World Cup when they're not on at 2 a.m.
Yeah, if it's on right before football, perfect lead in. For what it's worth, my final four: Brazil, England, Argentina, and Portugal, with Brazil winning against England in the final. That's what I'm going with after looking at how the bracket shakes out. You gonna be watching? You gonna give it a shot?
I will definitely give it more of a shot if there's no football on, real football. Yeah, I'd rather watch that than basketball. Definitely.
Shows how far the NBA has fallen. Let's
But
go to
like,
my.
no,
Let's go
I
to
was
my.
just like, I want to, no, it, yeah, I mean, that'd be cool. I mean, it is weird. It is because you watch it in Europe and it's like soccer is just so big. It's so big everywhere, and it's like
Right.
like Americans just literally would rather go bird watching than
Right.
And I wonder why, because like soccer, it could be like, I just think the reason why it's never going to be as popular is Americans were big on like all of the other sports leagues, like it's the best athletes in the best league in the world. You could do whatever you want marketing and promoting to the MLS.
Right.
It's never going to be the best league in the world. So like,
Right.
why? Like
As long as
if I became a diehard soccer fan or like more into it, I'm giving little to no attention to the San Jose Earthquakes, and I'm going to find a team in the English Premier League or La Liga or whatever league. I don't even understand how sometimes they're in the different leagues and then they come together. It makes no sense to me. You could also get relegated, which I actually think that's pretty cool. I actually wouldn't mind if sports out here said, if you suck for too long, like you're going to AAA and we're going to bring up AAA. I don't know. Like, I think that's pretty cool, but yeah, I don't know. The atmospheres are unreal. I don't know. They're onto something there across the pond, but
yeah, if we ever get to a point where our,
and red card every guy who flops. Maybe
oh,
then we'll start
would love
watching
that.
it.
we ever get to a point where our, Patrick Mahomes and Christian McCaffrey's, instead of, getting drawn to football as kids, they get drawn to soccer, then we'll be onto something. If we have our Steph Curry's playing soccer instead of, basketball, then maybe we can get onto something. Until that point, it's always going to be
Here's a question. If there was, like, if they really did have, like, I don't even know, a Ronaldo, David Beckham, Pele, like from the US, would they be a bigger deal? Would they be a bigger star if they were playing for, the Earthquakes, the Galaxy, or whatever? Or if they went to, like, Real Madrid, or like they took their Americans overseas, and like I think they'd be a much bigger star in America. Like they would be a bigger star, obviously, in Europe, if they played on a European team. But I'm saying, like, as a guy, if there was a guy from America who went over to like England or whatever and dominated, I think that would be way cooler than, I don't know, scoring 50 goals a year.
The best or second best player in the world right now is Kylian Mbappe for PSG. He makes more money in salary alone than every single MLS team. It's like, if there was ever an American on that level, you make 100 million plus. Messi at one point was making, I think, 150 million a year in salary alone from Barcelona. So it's like,
I guess when you think about it like this, if you're like, I don't know, if you're a hockey fan, like if you're a Russian, like Ovechkin's probably a bigger deal than any guy who's dominating the KHL.
Oh yeah.
And then if you're like a basketball fan, like, your Spanish leagues are cool, but like Pau Gasol is probably a bigger deal than whoever. I answered my own question. Yeah, and then I just don't even understand how they'll be like, oh, so-and-so, we're borrowing him. He's getting loaned. And like, none of it makes sense to me. Like, we're just giving it like, oh, you can borrow him.
It's insane, the whole system. It took me a long time to learn it. Now that I'm like a huge Tottenham Hotspur fan, like I understand how all these systems work, where it's like, hey, we got a player who he's 18.
Americans are lazy too. Like, we don't want to. I have no energy to learn all that. But I'm sure if I did, like, it'd probably be a lot more interesting.
Yeah, you'd be into it. Like, I've gone down the Wikipedia rabbit holes for hours and hours over the past, 8 or 10 years, where I'm like, I learn everything about every aspect of like how the American system of salary cap in this league, baseball is completely different, NBA is different, NHL is different.
That's hard enough.
Yeah, it's hard enough. And then soccer on top of it, it's like, now I got to learn about loans, and that there's promotion and relegation, and there's 5 different levels of
and like this guy,
leagues.
Home mortgage, and then you what taxes. It's
insane. It's a lot to keep up with. But tune into the World Cup if you get a shot. I'm thinking Brazil is who I see
Fox advertising the US Wales, and it's like it's on what, Sunday? Yeah, the Sunday
at 8 a.m. so that it can lead into the NFL coverage. Pretty smart time slot there for them to have, but we'll see how the ratings.
So you mean to tell me we're replacing Fox NFL Sunday with this?
You just can't get enough 77-year-old Terry Bradshaw. Yeah. Let's head over to my You Like That 5 best picks of the week for week 11. We went 3-2 last week because the Packers game came through, which you said absolutely do not take the Packers. Well, how about that win right there? 3-2 last week. We're 10-4-1 since we started the podcast. How about that? We won with Miami, the Giants, and the Packers last week. We lost with Seattle and Buffalo. Happy to lose with Buffalo. Here are our 5 picks for this week. We're riding with Chicago +3. I like how Fields is playing. They're at Atlanta. I think that's going to be a close game. I think Mariota's been playing really poorly. I thought this game would be like Pick'em or Atlanta -1, and it's -3. So we're going with Chicago. We both love Detroit. We think the Giants are due to fade. I've already mentioned Saquon Barkley's on pace for 430 touches. That will stop at some point, and they're going to have to rely on other quote-unquote weapons. That offense is not good. Biggest, scariest thing I've seen in our picks of the week yet, Vikings +2. I'm terrified to say this, but we should be favored in this game. We're 8-1. The Cowboys are coached by a jack in the bum of the week in Mike McCarthy. We're going with the Vikings there. And then you love Kansas City -5.5. So we're putting that on the list. You said you're just worried about the Chargers injuries.
Yeah, and the Chiefs are good, really good. Hot take.
Tremendous analysis. Patrick
They're
Mahomes.
that's going to be a home game for the Chiefs.
Yep.
Like, yeah, I just who is Herbert throwing the ball to? They're not going to be able to block. I mean, the first game was close in Kansas City, but that was when they were healthy.
Chiefs -5.5. Love it. That line will go higher during the week, guaranteed. Especially even if
Chargers lost another guy today. I saw another defensive lineman.
Yeah,
So
even
if Mahomes is just going to sit back there on the turf in SoFi with no one around him,
I
it's
like
going to
the
be a long
chances.
day.
Yeah, and now they may have found something in Tony as well. He was awesome.
I mean,
last week.
as soon as that happened, you're like, oh, the Giants team. You're like, oh, he didn't work out. Oh, he gets traded to Kansas City. You're like, everyone's like, why?
Why would you do this?
Oh my God, that's going to work.
And
It's
of
going to
course
be a
it
perfect
does.
fit.
Yeah, they got him for a 3 and a 6, and now he's like their number 2 receiver with Juju Hurt. And then 5th pick, Pittsburgh +5. Pittsburgh is at home against Cincy. So they beat Cincy in week 1 with TJ Watt. Watt is back. They're 3-0 with Watt or 2-0 with Watt in the lineup. They're catching 5 at home. Burrow still doesn't have Chase back. Do you like that? I kind of like Pittsburgh +5 in that spot because Watt just makes such a difference for that defense.
When I saw it, I thought it was pretty dumb, but you might have convinced me there. I don't, because I think about the Bengals without Chase against the Browns on the road in division, kind of the same thing. Look terrible, and the Browns suck.
Mm-hmm.
I think Pittsburgh sucks, but yeah, TJ Watt's back. It's in Pittsburgh.
Divisional game.
Yeah, they get weird. I know they beat them the first week, but I think they lost the turnover battle or won the turnover battle. Pittsburgh did 5-0,
right,
and still went to overtime.
Right.
But they had Jamar Chase. That was in Cincinnati. 5.5 is not little.
Mm-hmm. So we'll roll with Pittsburgh.
I think it's a shrewd move.
All right, let's lock them in. That's Chicago +3 at Atlanta, Detroit +3.5 at the Giants, Vikings +2 at home against Dallas, Kansas City -5.5, quote unquote, at the Chargers, even though it'll be a home game for Kansas City, and then Pittsburgh +5 at home against Cincinnati. You like that 5 picks of the week. Now it's time for Joey's Feels Great Baby, his wildest take he feels best about at the moment. And holy moly, do we have a doozy from you this week.
This is pretty wild. I honestly kind of struggled with this with the Wild because I was like, there's only so many times I can say the Rams, Packers, and Bucks, although Bucks are done. So I was like, let's go somewhere different. And watching the highlights, and watching Hard Knocks this week,
mm-hmm.
I believe I'm more confident in my first one. I believe Kyler Murray will be replaced by Colt McCoy by the end of the year. And to double down on that, I'm less confident in this. I think Dak Prescott will also be replaced by Cooper Rush by the end of the year.
Oh, man.
I'm way more confident in Kyler Murray, even though with the extension, because I just think Cliff and Steve Keim, and they just don't. They have ran out of fucks to give with Kyler Murray. HBO Hard Knocks showed DeAndre Hopkins and Kyler Murray getting into it, and I thought they looked to be on the same page when they're. I mean, the numbers with Hopkins for Kyler are way better without him. Like should be, he's that good of a player, but it seems even more exaggerated. If he loses him we're talking about vibes, body language.
Oh,
if he loses Hopkins, it is over. And I know they played the Rams. I mean, they played the JV Rams yesterday, but it was 27-10 until they got a pretty garbage time touchdown. And again, Colt McCoy, guy who knows the plays, knows where to be. Like he's 3-1, replacing Kyler last couple of years. He dog walked the Niners last year at Levi's without Hopkins. He replaced Kyler, and Hopkins didn't play either. Crushed the Niners at Levi's. I just think it just It may not be like they're not. I'm not saying like, oh, Kyler's gonna. They might cut him. Like that is not gonna happen. But I think if their season gets anywhere near like completely off the rails, which it's heading there.
Oh yeah.
Usually you bench a guy for like, oh, like the Colts, like here, let's see what Sam Ehlinger's got. Well, you know what Colt McCoy, you're not benching him for the future. Like it's to send a message to Kyler, like you better figure it out. Like study harder, put down the controller, interact with your teammates. But like again, it's very Aaron Rodgers. Why is everything not your fault, Kyler? Why is everything so like Cliff Kingsbury takes so much heat and it's most of it's deserved, most of it. But I have never seen a quarterback yell at his coach like what are you doing? Like even Rodgers does it his own way. Like Brady yells, but it's not Brady usually doesn't yell at the head coach.
Right.
He's usually offense. I don't know. It's bad. And if Kyler better play this week, he better play.
Oh yeah.
Because if Colt McCoy beats the Niners on Monday Night Football, look out.
In many ways, look out because you will be mad.
I will be on the hotline.
Yeah.
Sorry, Mom. The Dak, I'm not as confident because they are winning. Like except yesterday. I mean, they're 6-3. They're not 4-6. What Arizona is.
Yeah.
They're 6-3. Like they very well still, but again, like we said, if they lose this week, Minnesota, next week they get if he loses to Daniel Jones on Thanksgiving, where 50 million people or whatever is going to watch, like Jerry Jones is going to hear it, like you're paying 40 million or whatever for this, and not to get off on a totally big tangent, but we're taking it back to our, teams. It's like it absolutely baffles me that people will just. Dak Prescott is a franchise guy. Like Dak Prescott wishes he was Jimmy Garoppolo or Kirk Cousins. Like what on earth do people see? Like he's cool. Like he runs. He's in the mattress commercials. Like he's in the commercials with the housewives. What does he do? What?
Not win playoff games. I'll tell you that.
I don't know.
Seems like a great dude. We should point that out. Great dude. But what has he done in the NFL?
That is the one thing. You're right. That is the one thing I'll say about Dak. Seems like cool guy. Kyler, I can't. It doesn't look like anyone wants to be in the room with him. They'll be online with him, but not in the room. Dak, good guy, but you're making $40 million.
Got to carry the team
with your arm.
I mean, 14-point lead against Green Bay, a decimated Green Bay, and he couldn't close it out. Really, since his rookie year when he was the number 1 seed and lost Aaron Rodgers then as well. Like we've heard, this guy's a winner. He's a winner. His teammates love him, and it's true. He does win a lot of regular season games. I think he's won 1 playoff game to this point.
I want to say he beat the Rams. Did he, or did the Rams beat him? No, no.
Seattle.
They beat Seattle and then went to LA, and then LA beat him.
Yeah. So he has 1 playoff win in, I guess it's now 7 seasons as a starting quarterback in Dallas. Like it's put up or shut up time for Dak. And as you're saying, he's on notice. And
this is the same thing with Kyler and Dak with the teams. When you pay good elite money, when you pay good players elite money, you get screwed.
Yeah.
And
that's the modern NFL right there. Like if you're paying a guy who is not elite, even if he's very good, he's at the Prescott, Kyler Murray, Derek Carr type level.
I would much rather have Dak than Kyler just for the intangibles, but I mean, he's good. Like, I'm not saying these guys are scrubs. Like, they're good players, good NFL, but it's not even that they're not. It's just I never for the life of me understand why Kirk, like Jimmy deserved, but Kirk's got way better numbers than Jimmy does. Why Kirk gets so much crap, so much crap.
And to throw Tannehill in there as well too. Like this is his fourth season in a row where he's like looking at a number 1 or number 2 seed. Like all that guy does
You're
is
right.
win too.
You're right. But they're a running team, like,
Yeah.
and this is a Vikings podcast. Kirk Cousins, it's just nuts to me. Like, did you guys had Favre before? Like, I know you had Sam Bradford. You guys, but like, it could be a lot worse. It could be a lot worse.
Oh, it could be Christian Ponder. It could be Joe Webb.
Like, maybe people just don't think he's cool. Like, maybe he's just a stiff. I don't like. He just an easy target. And Dax, I don't know if he's more like he's a cooler guy. I know he's a Jordan athlete. He's signed, wears all the Jordan cleats or what. But I don't know.
You're tired of the Kirk slander. I
am.
Too.
That's my thing. I'm tired of the Jimmy slander when it's not warranted. If he throws high over the middle, it gets picked by a guy not covering the guy he's intending to throw the pass. Yes, the slander is absolutely appropriate, and I'll be the first one to rip him. But my point is they don't get enough credit when they do well. They get more than they get the appropriate amount of slander when it's bad. But when it's good, people always want to say, oh, Kevin O'Connell, oh, Jefferson, like anyone could throw to them. Okay. Well, he's throwing it to them.
Yeah.
He's 8-1. Okay. Like he gets injured. I don't know who the backup is. Who is the backup?
Big Dick Nick.
Oh yeah, of course. Oh well, then you guys will be set. He'll take you to Super Bowl. But after him, if it wasn't Big Dick Nick, and it was like I know you guys had Kellen Mond, but I think you guys cut him.
Yeah, he's on. I can't even remember who's. I think it's Houston's backup now, but yeah, we got Nick Mullins, so we're
like, people
okay.
Want to crap on Jimmy Garoppolo. Like book is out on Trey Lance, but if Jimmy gets hurt, which he might because he does, we'll get Brock Purdy season, and we're gonna be like, wow, okay. Jimmy was good.
Yeah. I feel like our namesakes for this podcast, the You Like That Feels Great Baby. I mean, our guys need a little respect. You got to put some respect on their name. They're 8-1 and 5-4.
We should timestamp this, and then the Vikings definitely are making the playoffs. Niners hopefully should, but if one of them or both has a WTF game, and we could be like, oh, remember that day? Yeah, just throw that out the window. This player sucks.
That was us.
Burn all of his jerseys.
Yeah. Completely.
I don't like that, and I don't feel great, baby. Yeah. No. Anyways, back to the wildest take. Yes, I think Kyler Murray. He better play. Like I said, he better play this week. As a Niner fan, I don't know who I'd rather have. I don't.
Wow.
And that tells you all you need to know. Like in theory, Kyler Murray should scare us because we have even at the peak of our powers, Super Bowl year last, like we have struggled with Russell Wilson in Seattle and Kyler and these guys who even Jalen Hurts, I think last year, like we struggle with the zone read because we run the whole get up the field, but the way Kyler looks and the way Colt McCoy played us last year, and especially if Kyler isn't 100%, which I'm no athlete, but if you have a hamstring, like I don't think you go from not playing to 100% in 1 week.
Absolutely.
So is he playing at 50%, 75? Because then it gets all into the weird stuff. Like what if he wants to go and he's at 70%? And I don't know, is it Kime, the owner, Cliff, who says no, we're gonna go with Colt? Like maybe Kyler doesn't care. I don't know. Maybe he's like, whatever, I'll play more video games. Maybe he doesn't. But I think he would. Yeah. Like, wait, you're not going to, you're actually going to play Colt McCoy over me? Like if he says he's 20%, then yeah. But if he says he's 70, 75%, it could get
with
really
that
weird.
Contract, you have to play him if he says he can physically play. And we'll see if he makes it on the plane next week.
He could be a Carson Wentz like contract.
Oh. I mean,
we're like he does actually get moved.
Yeah,
but then again, Arizona has sabotaged his reputation and his like the way they're like. What are they going to get? Like, I mean, they'll still get a good package. he's a very talented quarterback,
Right.
and everyone will think they could fix his problems. But
We'll see.
how many teams have thought they could fix Carson Wentz?
Oh yeah, and he could be another guy
And
like that
and
where
I
he
know
bounces from team to team.
Kyler Murray's number one overall pick, but Carson was number 2. He's a lot bigger. Like Carson Wentz, you could see why. Like, I mean, 6'4". I mean, he has a big arm. He just likes to throw left-handed picks for some reason.
Poor decision making.
And somehow sprained both his ankles on the same play. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, it's damning.
I don't know.
It's damning that you, a Niners fan, you're like, I don't know who I want.
I watched
them to
a
start
lot.
Next week.
I watched a lot of the game last week, Arizona, Seattle, and like even with Kyle, like it just doesn't. Nothing. Everything looks difficult. Like every
Right.
good play looks difficult. And with Colt, I'm watching some of the highlights. You can't say that. Well, I didn't watch anything, but I can't say that I even tried to attempt to watch that game.
As you shouldn't.
But it's like, yeah, people are happy. Touchdown, like AJ Green, who never plays, scored a touchdown, and woohoo, we're all happy. Kumbaya. Like Kyler's not here. Did he even make the trip? I don't know. Probably did, but
like you said, Kyler better play.
He better
next Monday.
Even if I think it'd be worse if he doesn't play. If he plays and looks bad, people could say like injury, whatever, like, okay, Niners defense good. Maybe, they can't block, whatever. But if he doesn't play, there's only bad things can happen. Because if Colt McCoy loses, he's a backup quarterback. Like, whatever. On the road, well, in the middle of nowhere. If he wins,
look out, Kyler. Look, there's something over your shoulder if McCoy wins that one too. Before we get out of Dodge, anything you want to talk about outside of sports? I know this week you spent in the beautiful island state of Hawaii. How was your trip?
Oh, it was good. It's great. To be honest, I found out I'm not like a huge vacation guy. Mostly just like I love being there, but like I'm the person that's like, oh my God, how much work am I gonna have when I get back, or like, whatever. But no, it was a blast. Went to Waikiki in Oahu. We rented did a rental car that we didn't even use. We thought we were gonna go to like Pearl Harbor, all this stuff, but basically we just decided we enjoyed eating like kings and just going to the beach and chilling. So
hell yeah.
Yeah, the food was fantastic. We actually did this one steakhouse strip steak, like Michael Mina's restaurant there, and it was like our one like major fancy place of the whole time. And we did like this tasting menu thing that we've never done one of those. Usually we're like, okay, I'm very picky. She's she likes what she likes. Have a steak, whatever. But we did this tasting menu, and it was like things I would never order ever. but they're like, well, you get a lot of food, and I was like, okay, say no more. It was like I think 105 a person, but we got this like curry soup. It was good. I wouldn't order it myself, but it was good. They had this like this tuna thing with jalapeno. I don't know what kind of tuna it was. That was the only thing that I was like, that was ass. Like both of us were like, that was terrible. They came out with this like breaded shrimp thing. That was dynamite. The next thing was like some type of noodles, and there was that came with pork belly. The next thing they also had the very end, the main thing was New York steak and potatoes and mahi mahi. Yeah, no, it's fantastic. Other than that, we went to this one bakery place twice because we got pork belly, Loco Mocos. Those are just, that was unreal. They're huge portions too.
Very nice.
Yeah, but I tell you this too. It made me appreciate being in the Pacific time zone as a sports fan. It's very, very underrated, especially football, like games 10 a.m., 1, 5 o'clock, Sunday night, primetime games start at 5 and other sports are like,
Right.
golf starts at a decent time. Like I couldn't imagine being a fan of like a team and then they go on the West Coast and like that game starts at like 10:30.
Oh,
Like if you're like a basketball, hockey, baseball fan, whatever. Like
yeah.
if you're like a Yankees fan, like, oh, they go to Oakland and wow, that game starts at 10.
Yeah. Ends at 1:30 a.m. on
Yeah.
a school night. Yeah.
And then like on football Sundays, like, what do you guys do until 1 o'clock? Like I wake up and it's like boom, countdown's on, and it's like, okay, like immediately,
Yeah.
like 10 a.m., 1, 5. And I love football. Like you love football. A lot of people love football. But there are some days if I really do stare all day, especially if a team loses, like it's hard to watch that third game like 5 o'clock. I'm like, I would think like East Coast, like you guys are watching this starting at 8:30.
I've
Like,
never understood it.
so you guys probably, had some beverages, breakfast, whatever. The first game's at 1. After the 4:05, 4:25 game on the East Coast, like you're probably pretty tuckered out.
Oh yeah.
8:30?
I'm in bed. 8:30. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm wow. I don't know. So yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's all the way at the other end of the spectrum in Hawaii where that Munich game started at 3 a.m. your time, and it's like, yeah, things are a little bit out of whack. It's better in Hawaii than it would be in like New York. Like when I would go back east to visit Jamie's family in New Jersey, and it would be like, oh, the Vikings are on Sunday Night Football. The game starts at 8:30. Like I'm as big a Vikings fan as there is in the world, and like it's my bedtime. Like it's second half is starting at 10:15 p.m. I'm like, see ya. I value sleep more than anything, and I just can't do it. Yeah, I don't know
yeah,
how
I don't
people on the East Coast make it work.
it's but no, it was an awesome trip.
Nice.
Yeah. What about you?
Got my 30th birthday coming up in 2 days on Wednesday. I got this awesome new mic from my lovely wife, Jamie, as my gift. She's very supportive of my podcast efforts. And then my mom and dad got me these new headphones that plug right into the mic that are like top of the line. So would like to thank everybody for supporting my silly idea to do a podcast with
what a
my
good
buddy.
husband and son.
Oh, I'm criminally underrated apparently because everybody's just showering me with these awesome gifts. I'm going to an awesome dinner on
Now that I
Wednesday.
think about it, my parents didn't send me anything for this podcast, so
Devastating. Yeah, Wednesday this week, turning 30. It feels different. I don't know. You've already turned 30, but when the number turns from something in your 20s to something in your 30s, something in my head is like, oh God. Like nobody will every time like I'm walking around and someone will say like sir, or like someone will like a little girl will be walking around, and she'll be like, look at that man or whatever, and he's wearing purple or something. Look at that man. And I'm like, God, I'm like an old man now. Like people look at me and they're like, sir.
I didn't really I don't know. I don't feel honestly, I'm kind of the other way. Like I still think of myself as like a 16, 17-year-old. Like not like 16, 17-year-old guy and you're just talking about farting and pooping and you know, like, whatever. Like, which I sadly not it. Kayla's listen if she is listening to this, then she'd be like, "You still do talk about that. You still make fart noises." But anyways, like simple things of like, oh, can't wait for like, you know, dinner tonight. I'm gonna have like, McDonald's or whatever. And it's like 30-year-olds like make dinner and like think about like how they're gonna do their 401k and whatever. And I'm like, so like TV show, like in this TV show, like this person, like you think I still think about like, oh, you know, I don't know. I still think about the same things like I do as a kid, like which I should be a lot. I should get a lot better at this, being older and like real job, and now with the house and stuff. But it's like, okay, like I don't. It's weird. It's a weird. The one thing that really does get me is like when I watch like sports drafts or like you hear about players and
Right.
you're like, this guy's, he's a little bit older. He was born in 2002. I'm like, huh, what? Like, or thinking about like, you know, buying a jersey and you're like, am I really about to buy a jersey of a guy who's
Ugh.
like half my age?
That's what I'm saying. I'm rocking the Adam Thielen jersey right now. He's older than me.
Like
Cousins.
when the Sharks get the first overall pick next year because they suck. Am I really going to get a 17-year-old jersey? Like, am I?
It's
I mean, the
rough.
question is, the answer is yes, I will eventually. Yes, I will.
Justin
But
Jefferson is the first jersey I've had of someone that's younger than me, and it is an odd feeling. Like
George Kittle's younger than me.
oh, that's
Like,
devastating.
he looks like he looks like I'm gonna just like totally dump on myself, but that dude looks like a man. I look at him and I'm like, I'm not the same species. Like,
Yeah.
he's what I think he's like 28. I could be wrong. You know what? I'm gonna Google it right now.
I think he's probably because what this is his
29.
7th season. Yeah, 7th
He's
season.
29.
Yeah, he's a year younger than you. It's a grown man though.
It's nuts. It's nuts.
It's very odd because, like, especially when we talk and think about sports, we kind of put ourselves in the position we were in when we were like, my favorite sports season of all time for any of my teams, the '09 Vikings. I was 16 years old. Brett Favre was on the Vikings. Favre is this mythological figure. Adrian Peterson is this mythological figure. These guys that are just like, demigods. They're like both Hall of Famers. They're playing for my favorite team. We're going to win the Super Bowl. And it's like now I'm a 30-year-old man. A lot of the guys that are determining whether the Vikings win or lose are younger than me. They graduated high school, like 2016 or 2017. I'm like, this is so bizarre. And yet, for whatever reason, once the game turns on, all that goes away. And you're just like, these are my guys. My dad is
so true.
My dad's 60 and he's living or dying on that Vikings Bills game. He texted me. He goes, I died. Send purple and yellow flowers to my funeral. Like, this is what we're destined to a life of. Even though we're getting older, our love for sports is not waning.
You get older, and like there's things you just know about sports that you never knew as like a kid.
Right.
Like you think more about like the business side, and then you get older, like your priorities change. Like I always thought, like, oh, if my teams like make it big, like I'm gonna mortgage my house to like get a ticket. And now I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm not doing that. I'm not. And it's like, oh, if I had the money, like I could afford it. Like I could afford, season tickets. At least like a package, maybe
Right.
like. But I mean, if I really wanted to, I could afford the full season and like couldn't pay me to do that right now. Like, excuse me, what Sharks? I'm supposed to like 41 home games, drive and pay $30 a part. No, like as a kid, I'd be like, well, yeah, like screw eating. Like, I'll pay my phone bill next month to go to this one game. It's like, yeah, it changes a bit, but like, yeah, for people like us, it's like, I will never give it up. It's what take it full circle. It's why people like us are so Team Tom in the divorce. Because it's like we are not giving it up. Like I don't care who you are. I could be married to whoever celebrity crush I could be married to.
Yeah, whoever Pete Davidson's dating at this moment.
If they told me I couldn't watch sports, sorry.
Like it's our thing, and we can't give it up. I mean, both of our dads are still obsessed with sports. My uncle is the biggest Niners fan. It's like, it's not hurting anybody. If you're like, oh, the Vikings are playing the Jets. Sorry, I'm going to miss our first wedding anniversary because I have to watch that game. That's a problem. But like, if you're watching this team that you have dedicated, let's multiply it times 3 hours times 16 games a year for 30 years. We're talking whatever that ends up being, thousands of hours of your life. And you're like,
have seen it. You must have seen it. That TikTok of that Bears fan.
Like
a few weeks ago, maybe even like longer than that, where his like girlfriend was like, why do you care? It's like it's just a game, and he's like borderline like it. Like you see, some of them were kind of staged, but this one looked real. He's just like, he said, he gave a line like, I've been with you for 2 years. He's like, this has been my team for like 20 something. He's like, what do you mean? Like, he said, and I was like, it was so quick. It was so to the point. If you haven't seen it, like you search like Bears fan something, I'm sure it'll come up. Like it went so viral. The Bears, I think, brought him to a game, like gave him tickets, field pass, whatever. And it's just like, yeah.
This is why your team,
closest,
Tom.
the closest thing I can think of, like for people who aren't sports fans, what is it like? And the best thing I've come up with is a pet. Like sports, our team is like getting a new pet every year. And that pet that you love, sometimes that pet will poop on the couch. Sometimes it'll pee on the floor. You got to clean it up. Sometimes the pet gets sick, it gets injured, but then it gets healthy, whatever. But for, at least speak for me, you, our pet has died every year. Died. Sometimes tragically, like it got ran over by a bus. Sometimes it lived a really good long life, got really close, but then, died every year. What's it like to see our team win? What will we feel like? You say your favorite pet, I'd say Kayla, like Kayla, your cat Cruiser, my dog Snoopy. Everyone's got a pet. Most people have a pet. If you were told that that pet could live forever at its peak state, how would that make you feel? That's what it's going to be like.
That is the best thing I've ever heard in my life. Oh my God.
Like you tell Jamie, which Jamie has been in sports. She likes sports. She gets it. Like her favorite pet she's ever had, anyone.
Yeah. Our cat Frazier.
Like I'm not saying your cat, dog, what a bird, like, oh, they lived forever at their old age. No, I mean like somehow lived in immortality at their peak health and age for the rest of time. Every night you got to hug that cat, that dog, whatever it is, for the rest of your life. That's what seeing your team wins like. For the rest of time, as they say, banners fly forever.
And I've been a Vikings fan.
For you, for me, your dad, my dad, for all these people who've never seen them, like that is what.
Oh. See, this is the problem.
I hope when I say that, people get it. Like, because I'm just thinking about it, it's like, yeah, that's what, like, your pet, something you love. Because that pet, just like sports, like this team doesn't pay my phone bill, doesn't pay the mortgage, pays nothing. It provides absolutely no substantial benefit to my life in terms of living a long, healthy life, success, whatever. All it does is provide a tremendous amount of joy and pain. Like a pet. That pet, you love that pet. That pet, you do anything to that pet. That pet's not a family member. That pet is not your job. It is nothing. You didn't have to have that pet. You bought that pet. Like that came to you. Like you get family, like you get a job, whatever. That pet came to you. Like these teams came to us. And it's like, you mean to tell me that, I don't know. I thought about it one day. I'm like, you know what? That's what makes sense.
It's a good comp. And unfortunately, I've been a Vikings fan for almost 30 years. I've been an A's fan for almost 30 years. I've been a Sharks fan for almost 30 years. You've been a Niners fan and an A's fan and a Sharks fan. And you combine that up, that's like 180 seasons.
Do you know how many pets have died?
180 each of us.
180 pets.
That's a lot. It's about goddamn time for one of our teams.
Like just one.
Yeah. And please, for the love of God and all that is holy, let it be the 2022 Minnesota Vikings.
It could.
This has been yet another episode of the You Like That Feels Great Baby podcast. For Joey Moore, I'm Erik Stenholm. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back again next week. See ya.